Listen to the voice inside your head right now, the inner monologue that is processing these words, the voice that argues with itself when you're trying to make a decision. You feel like a single unified person. You feel like a pilot sitting perfectly in the center of your skull, looking out through your eyes like they are windows, steering the ship. When you say the word I, you are talking about that pilot. You believe that your thoughts, your feelings, and your physical body are all operated by one central, unbroken consciousness. It is the most fundamental assumption of human existence. It is the absolute basis of free will. But it is a biological hallucination. You are not one person. You are not the sole captain of the ship. Right now, sitting behind your eyes, there are two completely separate, independent consciousnesses trapped inside a single skull. They have different desires. They have different skill sets. Sometimes they even hold completely different beliefs. And that voice in your head, the one you are listening to right now, that is just one half of the system. It is acting as a very loud public relations manager, desperately making up fake stories to convince you that you are entirely in control. Don't believe me? For centuries, philosophers debated the concept of the human soul. They argued over what makes us exactly who we are. But the answer didn't come from a philosopher. It came from a radical, terrifying medical procedure in the 1960s. A procedure where doctors took a scalpel to the human brain and accidentally proved that the human soul can be cut perfectly in half. In the 1960s, neurologists were desperately trying to find a cure for severe epilepsy. In extreme cases, patients were suffering from massive, life-threatening electrical storms in their brains. The human brain is divided into two distinct hemispheres, the left and the right. In a healthy brain, these two halves communicate constantly. They pass information back and forth across a thick bridge of 200 million nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. During a severe seizure, the electrical storm starts on one side of the brain and crosses that bridge, overwhelming the entire system. So, surgeons decided to try something incredibly radical. They drilled into the patient's skulls, took a surgical scalpel, and physically cut the bridge in half. They severed the connection entirely. The left side of the brain was completely, permanently isolated from the right side. The procedure was called a corpus callosotomy, and initially it looked like a miracle. The seizures stopped completely. The patients woke up, healed and relieved. They could walk, they could talk, they still had their memories, their sense of humor, and their personalities. To the outside world, they seemed perfectly, 100% normal. But then, a psychobiologist named Roger Sperry started running tests on these patients, and he noticed something deeply unsettling. Because the bridge was cut, the two halves of the brain were no longer sharing information. But they were both still awake, and they were both still trying to control the body. The left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. It is also where your speech center is located. It is the half that talks. The right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. It is highly visual and creative, but it is entirely mute. It cannot speak a single word. Sperry discovered that without the bridge, these two hemispheres began acting like completely independent people. And sometimes they strongly disagreed with each other. Patients started exhibiting terrifying symptoms. A patient would reach into their closet with their right hand to put on a blue shirt, but their left hand would suddenly reach out, push the right hand away, and grab a red shirt instead. One patient's right hand would try to button up a jacket, while their left hand actively followed behind it, furiously unbuttoning the jacket. Another patient reported that his left hand would randomly try to slap his own face, and he would have to use his right hand to physically wrestle his left arm to the ground. This was not a muscle spasm. This was two separate consciousnesses with two different opinions, physically fighting for control over a single skeleton. One half was trying to go to work, the other half wanted to stay home. And because the speaking half of the brain had no idea what the silent half was doing, the patients were absolutely terrified. But the most mind-bending discovery was yet to come. Because the researchers wanted to know what happens when you ask the speaking half of the brain to explain why the silent half just did something crazy. To figure out what was happening, one of the lead researchers, Michael Gazzaniga, designed a brilliant test. He knew that the human visual system is also cross-wired. Everything you see out of your left eye is sent exclusively to the right hemisphere of your brain. Everything you see out of your right eye goes to the left hemisphere. So, Gazzaniga took a split-brain patient and flashed a command strictly to their left eye. The screen simply said, "Walk." The silent right hemisphere read the word. It processed the command. The patient stood up and started walking across the room. But remember, the speaking left hemisphere didn't see the word. It was completely in the dark. So, Gazzaniga stopped the patient and asked a very simple question. Why did you just stand up? If the human mind was unified and honest, the patient should have said, "I have absolutely no idea," or "My body just moved on its own." But that is not what happened. The patient didn't hesitate. They didn't look confused. Instead, the left brain instantly lied. It confidently made up a completely fake story. The patient would say, "Oh, I was just getting up to go get a drink of water," or "I just wanted to stretch my legs." Gazzaniga ran this test over and over again with different commands. Flash the word "laugh" to the right brain, the patient laughs. Ask the left brain why, and it says, "Because you guys are so funny." The left brain had absolutely no idea why the body was doing these things, but instead of admitting that it was not in control, it fabricated a completely fake reality to make itself look like the captain of the ship. Gazzaniga named this phenomenon the left brain interpreter, and it is the most terrifying thing about human consciousness. Because scientists realize now that this isn't just happening to split-brain patients. It is happening to you right now. Your brain isn't broken, the bridge is just intact. Your silent, primitive right brain is constantly making impulsive, emotional, survival-based decisions. And your speaking left brain, the voice in your head you think of as you, is just a public relations manager. Its entire biological purpose is to watch what your body does and then instantly invent a logical, comforting story about why you did it. Think about every major decision you have ever made in your life. The person you decided to date, the career you chose, the argument you started. You think you used logic. You think you carefully weighed the options and made a conscious, rational choice. But the science is clear. You didn't. The silent, primitive half of your brain made the decision in a fraction of a second. It chose based on instinct, on emotion, on survival. And then, milliseconds later, your left brain stepped up to the microphone. It wrote a neat, logical story about why you did it. And it convinced you that the decision was your idea all along. We spend our entire lives worshiping the concept of free will. We believe we are the authors of our own destiny. But the terrifying truth is that you are not the driver. You are just a passenger locked inside a dark cockpit, staring at a screen, hallucinating that your hands are on the steering wheel. So, the next time you hear that familiar, comforting voice in your head, telling you exactly who you are and why you do the things you do, just remember, that voice is just a PR manager. And it is lying to you.